Kristy Sparrow, thank you very, very much for joining me this morning to have a bit of a talk to me about your entrepreneurial behavior, but also your entrepreneurial leadership around wanting to create better communities through better internet. And that's probably the kind of context that I want to talk to you about today, that I'm very excited about, because the WIRE program as such, it's about building capacity for rural, regional, remote women through entrepreneurship and innovation. And part of that is, or a big part of that is really a delivery of a digital-driven kind of program. So, we do have virtual hubs that we're going to use, and webinars and online workshops. And recently, when we conducted the 15 regional innovation pop-ups to kind of co-create this WIRE program, it became very, very clear that we as a program team really need to look for innovative ways to actually drive this program forward, because of the lack of internet, or the slow internet in particular areas in Australia as well, especially like in this rural regional areas. So for us, it's a very big issue, and I think as a university, we're very passionate about our work in the regional space. So I'm very much looking forward to talking to you about quite a few issues in terms of your initiatives as you've driven that forward. Can you maybe tell me a little bit more about yourself, and also about maybe some of the initiatives that you've driven in the recent past, but also a little bit more about the better internet for regional, rural and remote communities?
No worries. Well, I'm Kristy Sparrow and I live on a cattle property north of Alpha in Central Queensland. I'm a mum to two very data-hungry screenagers that are 15. I'm an ex-kindy teacher from the Riverina in New South Wales, and I moved to Queensland to work for a remote area family service doing mobile play groups on isolated properties, and lived in Emerald, Longreach and Charleville during those times. I have extensive volunteer experience in the local community as part of the Alpha Jockey Club Races Fashions Organisation Committee, as well as the Alpha Show Society and the Isolated Children's and Parents Association, where I convened the state ICPA conference last year. While my children did their primary schooling, it was at the Longreach School of Distance Education, and I was heavily involved in the PNC, where we edited a cookbook and got that published, which was quite a large learning curve.
Wow.
I have an online craft business that is very neglected, selling girls' accessories, hair accessories and clothing, which I haven't had time to do since Kylie, my friend, and I started the Better Internet group in 2015. It was just a spur of the moment decision. I probably didn't use the 24-hour rule, which I can explain later, very well. And we set up a Facebook group to see if other people had issues with their internet, and they did, and it snowballed from there.
Okay, look, that's wonderful. Tell me a little bit more about, I guess, just to kind of set the scene, about the lack of internet, or the internet problems that you thought there's out there, and the kind of problem that you wanted to solve.
Okay, so the number one problem we see is the data drought. So it's a lack of affordable data and plans that meet people's needs. So in regional Australia, most people are using one connection to meet the needs of their children's education, whether that be tertiary, or whether they're going to a state school on the bus and coming home to use the connection, or they're doing distance education. But also out of that one connection, Dad's also running his business. Mum could be running a side business, such as a clothing business or a photography business. And this is becoming more common, especially with the drought, that people are trying to look to other means to earn an income. They're also using that one connection for their personal needs and for their health needs. There's a lot of Skype availability for health specialists and things now, and that's all run off very limited data. So the average data consumption use on an NBN connection in Australia is about 144 gigabytes, and these people are running on an average of 40 gigabytes, so significantly less.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess also in our very recent survey that we've done as part of the program, I think we're just crunching the numbers at the moment, but about 70% of respondents said that a lack of internet and the internet cost and, a whole range of problems around internet will actually be a major barrier in them creating or starting a new business. So it's an absolute...
because they have to ration their data, I suppose you could say.
Yeah.
And things like webinars and conferences and things that are heavy data users are not high on the priority when your kids need to do their homework, you need to do your internet banking and things like that. So it becomes down to how good you are rationing your data, or whether you're prepared to get up between 1 a.m. and 7 a.m. and use your off-peak data. And most teenagers don't like that then.
Absolutely. I guess the WIRE program is also very much focused on women who want to make a change in communities through starting a venture or progressing a venture or an initiative to actually make a difference. And that's obviously, that's from where I sit, that looks like you wanting to make a difference in your community. So I guess my question to you is this is such a worthwhile cause. How did you come up with this idea?
Well, Kylie and I were just discussing it on Facebook chat one day and said, like, these are the problems that we're having. I wonder if anyone else is having the problem. And so we sort of said, oh, well, let's set up a group on Facebook and see if there's other people having these problems, and we can share the knowledge that we've learned in trying to solve the problems along the way. And it just really snowballed from there. And I think within 24 hours, we had hundreds of people that had joined the group, and we're now sitting at nearly 9,000 members of our group. And we've got a website that we post tips onto. We've got a very active Twitter account. So I think there was obviously a need, so we filled a need. And telecommunications in Australia is a very, very confusing jungle. It's often people don't know how they're connected and how to stay connected. Mm. So, and that's a gap that wasn't being filled by any organisation.
Absolutely. So in driving this initiative forward, I mean, I've seen so many little articles and, press aspects that you've been quite verbal about this particular aspect. How have you gone about to actually drive this initiative forward, you and Kylie both? Like, how have you gone about doing that?
So I think we've been very vocal advocates in the media, and the media have been fantastic. And I think that has led people to our group. Our first interview was with Ashmore at ABC Western Queensland in Longreach, and I still remember how nervous I was doing that very first interview. But I think the media have been fantastic at letting people know that we're out there and that we are a volunteer group. And I think we have to bring that home to the government and to the telcos, that we are a volunteer group, that we're all running businesses and we're busy mums. But I think it's just word of mouth, basically. So we've helped one person, and that's just snowballed and snowballed and snowballed until we've got to the point where it's almost a full-time job.
Oh, look. So what I would also like, you talk about government, so you're obviously trying to make a change and make a difference and have impact on government. How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so along the way, they've sort of found us, I suppose. We've made noise in the right type of places, and we've joined forces with other organisations such as ICPA and AgForce and NFF, and we've now got the Rural, Regional and Remote Communications Coalition, and we've just recently been to Canberra as part of that coalition. And I think coming from all of those organisations, I hope our voice is louder. And I think working together too is great for advocacy, because we're all coming from a rural, regional, remote focus, and teamwork is a huge player in that.
You've touched on so many different aspects in relation to entrepreneurial behaviour just there, the issue of teamwork, the issue of partnerships, the issue of driving your initiative forward through creative thinking. And I want to explore a little bit more about that with you this morning. But before I do, like, I guess I want to get a bit in your head, in your head about the whole aspect of being an entrepreneurial woman, because you are certainly very entrepreneurial in the sense you've identified a particular pain point, you're exploiting that to actually add value, and you add value to the community, you add value to those around you through your initiatives, and trying to make a difference. So that is absolutely, entrepreneurial behavior. So how do you see yourself within this? And you may not have given this much thought, and I don't think we very often, we don't see ourselves as entrepreneurial women, but I'd like to know kind of, how do you see yourself?
I probably don't see myself as an entrepreneur. I probably see myself more as a lobbyist, an advocate, a troubleshooter, a volunteer, but certainly not as an entrepreneur. I think we're all focused on the goal and not really worried about the role as much. Yeah. So I don't see myself as a leader or as an entrepreneur, but definitely focused on that goal, which is to end the data drought. And I think that's sort of clearly at the forefront of my mind. It's a very messy minefield in there, though. It's quite dangerous to get access to my mind. I think my team would like to download all of the information that's in there. But yeah, I think, and as you said, teamwork is a huge part, and we've got a fantastic team. It's only a small team, but we're all set on that one goal. We all live and breathe the data drought, and we're on the ground in these rural communities, and I think that the government really need to use us much better because they don't have the knowledge and the skills that we have. Absolutely.
I'd want to go a little bit back when you started this initiative. You can call it a venture, because it really is a venture as you move it forward. And because I want you to share a little bit with other women that's going to watch this and listen to you. How did you go about from that initial idea that, hey, you and Kylie, here's a problem, and we actually want to solve the problem? What were kind of, if you think back a little bit, the steps that you kind of went through to get to the point where you are now?
Yeah, it's been a really huge learning curve. So we've learned a lot along the way. One thing that we have learned is that you need to be kind but firm. So while we allow people to vent their frustrations, we don't allow name calling and people to be rude and just downright accusing providers or the government of issues. So we're not afraid to boot people out. Usually we have a lot of issue with men, and we boot them out if we have, they get a warning and they're gone. But we're kind, we're compassionate, we really do care, and I think that's something that is really lacking from the telecommunications industry, is that level of customer service where somebody actually cares about your problem and they're willing to see it through till the end. We're tenacious, we're like a dog with a bone. We don't let go until that problem is resolved. And I think that's probably the key to the success that we've had.
So it sounds to me like you had this idea, and then you consciously or subconsciously decided to create a community or a tribe around you that actually also passionate about this particular problem. Is that what happened?
Yeah, and I think it was very subconscious. Initially, Kylie and I were like, oh, let's see if other people have got the problem. We never, ever foresaw that it would be this huge support group for regional Australia. That's never where we went. We just thought, we can find information out, we can post it in the group and everything will be great. Like, everyone can help themselves. But it's not that simple. And I think, yeah, it's been a huge learning curve along the way. And we do have such a fantastic little small tribe of women. And I think it is finding that tribe and owning that tribe, owning the knowledge that you've gathered and going to bat in with that knowledge.
Also thinking back, did you and Kylie sit down and decide together what you want to achieve with this? So did you have like an end goal in mind at that beginning stages, or was it just something?
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
We certainly didn't. I was given advice a long time ago as a mother, but this has seen me through a lot of experiences over the last few years. It's called the 24-hour rule. And you should always wait 24 hours. Kylie and I possibly should have waited 24 hours before we ran in and set the Better Internet group up, or BIRRR, but we didn't. We went in sort of a bit blindfolded, I think, into what we thought could help people, and that's not what people needed. People needed someone to actually troubleshoot their problems, because not everyone is technical, and sometimes it's as simple as, have you got the blue cord plugged in the second hole? And I think that's what people need, and it shouldn't be provided by a group of volunteers, but it is being provided by a group of volunteers. So yeah, we certainly didn't go into it with a goal. We probably do now, after writing endless submissions this year, have more of a goal and a set of objectives, but certainly not when we first started.
Would you like to maybe talk a little bit about those objectives and the kind of maybe an end goal, or just a kind of a more bigger goal that you've got in mind?
Yeah, I think so. Our biggest goal is definitely an end to the data drought, because if the data limits aren't meeting our needs now, it's certainly going to be limiting business and education and regional development going into the future. But personally for me, another goal is that we become redundant, because I really don't think it's up to a group of volunteers to be doing the customer service needs of regional Australia when it comes to telecommunications. So I think, like, we've done lots of work with the telcos and the government into saying that, like, you need to step up and you need to provide your own customer service, because often, you know, people get lost in the system, and it's as simple as picking up a phone call and saying, have you got this cord plugged in the right port? Yeah. Or tell me about your problem. And, you know, often they're not lengthy problems to solve.
Yes.
Except for one.
So,
yeah,
So I guess I often think of an entrepreneur as an initiator, especially within, you know, if you're in an organisation or a community space and you don't necessarily have a concrete business. So you're an initiator, and that you certainly are. What would be maybe, in your opinion, 3 very critical skills like that a successful initiator need to have to drive a cause forward?
Yeah, so I think they need to be resilient, particularly if they're in a regional area. They need to think outside of the box and be able to maybe overcome their location. So definitely to be resilient. I think you have to be tenacious. I think you have to be organised, definitely be organised. Like, I'm a list person, and they would be my 3 top tips on being an entrepreneur, I suppose.
Okay. So is there maybe other, I guess, initiators or entrepreneurs or entrepreneurial leaders out there that you, maybe one or so that you particularly admire?
Yeah, I'm a very strong admirer of Georgie Somerset. She has been a fantastic mentor to our group. In terms of a business sense, Joy McClimate from Off the Track Training is a remarkable woman and has achieved so much with the limited access to the internet and things that she has available from where she lives. So they would be 2 women that I really do admire.
In relation to, you know, your journey so far, you must have had a lot of stumbling blocks. And maybe some failures along the way as well. And it's very difficult when you hit those stumbling blocks and you think, you know, what the heck am I doing? Why am I doing this, etc. How do you overcome, you know, in your mind, say, you know, to overcome those stumbling blocks and just to persevere? And you just talked about tenacity and talked about resilience. How have you done that?
I think we've learned a lot along the way. It's been a very, very bumpy road full of, you know, speed bumps and potholes. And I think you just need to be persistent, and you need to be confident that you have the knowledge and not be, I suppose, to allow people to talk down to you that you're not good enough, or that you're a woman and you live in the bush and what would you know? Like, I'm in Canberra and I know what's going on more than you do. I think you really have to own your knowledge and be confident that you do know what you're talking about. Otherwise, they will walk all over you.
So we already talked about some, I guess, qualities or skills and so forth. But if we talk specifically focusing on starting an initiative and also then driving that initiative forward. What would be some key elements that you can share with women out there? You know, if they've got a great idea and they actually want to make a change in their community, like what are the kind of elements that you think should be part of the mix?
Definitely have a strong social media presence. Social media is amazing for getting the word out there. We use a lot of polls. So if you were starting a business, you might like to use a poll on what's your favourite colour if you're making a clothing, or so on Facebook we use a lot of polls. You can actually do that on Twitter as well. I think getting as much media as you can is also important, and getting your name out there, and having that clear set of goals of where you want to go, so that when someone does ring, even if it's in the middle of boarding school drop-off, you know exactly what you want to say, and you've got a clear set of goals of what you're going to tell that journalist when they ring.
You mentioned social media. Tell me a little bit more about around these strategies that you use within the social media space to actually get your message out.
Yeah, so we're basically wholly and solely a social media group. Our group is on Facebook, and we've got quite a large following on Twitter. So we use all of the tools available to us on Facebook. So you can upload documents to be shared, you can do a poll, you can share photos and links. So we use all of those to get our word out. We encourage people to share our posts. We're a closed group, which means that people can see even if they're not a member. And we do remind members of that all the time, you know, to be careful of confidentiality and privacy when they're posting like their address or IP address or something like that. So we do use Facebook to the best of our advantage. Recently, we just set up, Facebook have the facility now to be able to ask new members 3 questions, which sort of it enables you to distinguish whether that's a spam, you know, someone trying to sell sunglasses or someone really interested in getting their internet problem solved. So that's been a great new initiative that Facebook have introduced. So I think, and also we joined the Facebook admins group where we can learn about the new things that they bring in and discuss with other group admins how to control the group and how to run the group. So yeah, that's been a big learning curve for us as well.
Yeah, that's wonderful that you actually use Facebook so well as a tool to actually progress your cause. Do you also use other social media elements? You mentioned Twitter.
Yeah, so I'm not huge on Twitter. I'm a bit of a novice, but we do use it quite a bit, and we have had data drought trending once during an NRL grand final, which was pretty impressive. And I'm slowly getting there. I use Instagram on a personal level. Yeah. There's not much data drought stuff going on Instagram, but it becomes a bit of a time management issue as well. We just spend so much time troubleshooting that we really just everything goes by the wayside when our main focus is, I suppose, trying to divide our time between being advocates and actually helping people.
So obviously you mentioned a very, very important aspect, especially for, you know, initiators like yourself, is that time aspect. You know, you mentioned you've got your family and then you're driving this and you've got some other things. How do you go about managing your time and, you know, kind of balancing, if you can even call it balance between this particular initiative where obviously a lot of times go into, but also the rest of your other dimensions of your life?
I don't do that very well. I'm not very good at time managing. Sometimes I can be up till all hours trying to get things done. But I think the secret to it is really delegation and delegating things to your team, things that, you know, and letting other people do things that they're quite capable of doing. And that's another reason why it's difficult to get inside of my head, because there's so much stored in there because I just don't have time to get out and often don't have time to debrief with my team. Like recently I went to Canberra by myself as part of the coalition, but I feel that I haven't even had a chance to debrief because I saw about 15 senators and MPs. And while I know what was said in each of those meetings, it's very difficult to get all of that information to my team and debrief on that. So delegation is really key, and working with your team, I think, as you know, to time manage much better.
Yeah. You know, obviously you conduct a lot of kind of social inclusion by, you know, including people with the same problems into your initiative and your group. Apart from Facebook, or maybe should I say using Facebook, how do you actually get people to become part of your group, or do they just come?
So basically, we just call them a member when they join our group, but we do have people that aren't on Facebook that use our website as a tool. We've spoken now at several conferences and forums, and we realise that not everyone is on Facebook, but we do have an email address that's quite active for people that aren't on Facebook, and often they will people do really want to help themselves, but it's just trying to find that information. So our website has had over 120,000 hits now, so it's a very well used resource, and we learned pretty early on, I think after a year of having the Facebook group, that it was never going to be just enough to have the Facebook group, and that we needed to move to a web-based forum to store all of our documents and tip sheets and things like that. So I think it's not so much that we have pay $5, you're a member of BIRRR. It's just more of a community forum of like-minded people, I suppose, that are having the same issues.
Okay. You mentioned also earlier around the issue of partnerships, and that's why you really got some very good traction with this particular initiative. So tell me a little bit about your view on partnerships, or, you know, strategies that you've used in the past to actually get partners on board.
Yeah, so when we were at the ICPA conference, our Alpha branch, I wasn't actually there, we met with some Telstra reps and encouraged them to come out to Alpha and see a remote schoolroom in work. So the managing director of Telstra Countrywide actually flew from Melbourne to Alpha, which is pretty remarkable, to see a schoolroom at work. And as he left, he said to me, "What one thing do you think could make a difference to these kids?" And I said, "Well, it's data." I said, "How about you unmeter the education sites that they access?" So in partnership with ICPA, we were able to get unmetered access to distance education sites. So I think that that's one terrific partnership. In terms of the Better Internet group, we're only focused on internet, I suppose, or telecommunications, whereas ICPA have got so many aspects that they have to cover across education as a whole. So for us to be able to work together on just one issue was fantastic.
That is wonderful. How do you go about actually creating these partnerships?
I think they just find us.
They find you. Okay.
AgForce through Georgie Somerset is another partnership that we've worked really hard with, and Georgie just sort of found us and has been a fantastic mentor, especially through her role on the RTERT committee and her knowledge of the government and telecommunications as a whole. NFF found us through Georgie, I think, and actually asked us to speak at their Congress. So I think, we're so busy dog paddling away, I suppose you could call it, that we don't really have time to go and foster these partnerships, but they tend to find us. So even NBN found us, for example, and reached out to us and said, "How about we give you this contact and that contact?" And I think that's sort of, developed over time. So we now have partnerships with a lot of the telcos, a lot of the providers, NBN and the government.
Yeah. Is there any other strategies that you want to mention that may be worthwhile for other women to think about when they're trying to move their cause forward?
We did actually use crowdfunding. We found that we were often invited to speak at conferences, or we wanted to do a face-to-face meeting, so, for example, with NBN, because it's all well and good to have teleconferences and video conferencing, but it's not exactly the same as having a face-to-face meeting and being in the same room as a group of people. And I think that has really helped us to be able to have those face-to-face meetings and travel to forums and conferences and meet some of the people, because we often find that we're actually the only ones living and breathing the experiences that we're having, and we often speak to rooms full of people that live in capital cities. So it's really important to us to get out there and spread our word face to face, and crowdfunding has enabled us to do that.
Now, a lot of, I guess a lot of entrepreneurs don't know much about crowdfunding. So in terms of the crowdfunding context, is that something that was difficult to kind of get your head around?
Yeah, we tossed it up for quite a while before we decided to do it. We got a bit of legal advice as well. And it was always sort of, oh, look, we'll just leave it for a bit longer and we'll just fund it ourselves. But then it just got more and more expensive. And, you know, it's quite a lot of work to run an advocacy group in terms of the costs involved. So we were, you know, getting costs that you don't even think of, like web hosting costs and things. So we decided to crowdfund, and we were really blown away. We put a lot of research into which crowdfunding organisation to use, and we ended up going with Chuffed, which is probably not as well known as some of them, but it ticked all the right boxes for us. And we were really happy with our campaign. We didn't really push it. We said, if you want to donate, we did discuss whether, you know, we charge $5 for every troubleshooting case, and we decided no, that wasn't really what we were setting out to do. So we just put it out there, and if people wanted to donate, and they did. CWA New South Wales ended up giving us $5,000 because they really believe in our cause, and that was really well appreciated.
So I guess going back to the beginning in terms of, you know, you and Carning starting this, usually there's a big why for you. Why am I doing this? What is your big why? Why are you doing this?
There's still the big why. Some days that why is really, really large. I think we really do it to help people. And I think at the end of the day, we have to think that we are making a difference and we are helping people. Otherwise, you can just get bogged down on all of the things that can occur, because it's a very needy job. You know, people want help and they want help now, and they often can't see past the frustration that they've had to just see a clear picture of it, way out of that.
Yeah, yeah. I guess also in terms of your journey over this time, there must have been a lot of lessons that you've learned. What would be some of those lessons that you want to share?
Yes, we have learned a lot of lessons. I think to be firm and to be really forthright in knowing that you know what you believe in is true. We've done lots and lots of research now, so we've got the statistics to back us up. So if you hear something that you don't think is quite right, then go and research it and find out the facts and send it back to the person that said it, because I think that's really important to actually be really forthright in your knowledge and your skills, and know that you can make a difference. You mentioned before that you actually want to become redundant in the future. So so talk a little bit about that. We feel that the government and the telecommunications industry as a whole should be doing what we're doing. It is not the advocacy role definitely is a role that a volunteer can fill, but the troubleshooting role, which consumes most of our lives, is something that we shouldn't have to be doing. No other major, business uses a group of volunteers to troubleshoot for their customers. So that even though we want to see an end to the data drought, we feel that our work would be better being advocates than troubleshooters.
Do you think the end of the data drought is near?
No, I don't think so. I think we've got a really long road ahead. I don't think that the powers that be understand the implications of data in regional Australia and how it can build business, support education and support the growth of some of these towns. I don't think that they understand that people won't come and set up businesses in towns when they can't access tools to support that business.
Yeah.
We can't have kids coming home to study externally for tertiary if they can't get the data to watch lectures. So I think until that realisation hits the powers that be, then we're not going to see an end to the data drought.
Kristy, in terms of moving forward on this initiative, what would be, I guess, a next big goal for you and Kylie to achieve?
I think as a team, we address this quite a bit. Our focus at the moment is to just keep swimming. We've always got these jobs to tick off. I'd really like to see the website redone so that it's up to date. Like, we just haven't had time to do that. But then yet again, is that our role, or is our role to be more advocates? And I would really like to see down the track that we can go back to the advocacy and lobbying role, and that troubleshooting role can be picked up by the telcos. And we are in discussions at the moment with the big name telcos and NBN, that they really need to be providing a specialist rural, regional and remote help centre, a one-stop shop where people can go and get their concerns addressed.
Kristy, have you had any mentors apart from, you don't have to name names, or you could if you want to, and you already mentioned Georgie Somerset, that's been a great mentor to you. But do you think mentors have made a big difference in how you approached your journey and how you progressed your journey?
Definitely. So my parents have been amazing mentors to me, not in terms of the Better Internet group, but in life as general. They have always been great volunteer people in their community, and we witnessed that growing up. They've always been very socially minded and caring about the community. So definitely they have been huge mentors to me. Georgie has been an amazing mentor, and my team at Better Internet are a remarkable group of women, and through the Better Internet group we have met so many people that have been willing to help, whether they be an installer or a tech advisor, and I have go-to people that I go to about specific problems. So there's been a range of people that have assisted us on our journey.
So it sounds to me you've really been successfully creating this network of people around you to actually help you move your cause forward, and which you have obviously used as a very, very good strategy.
Yeah, definitely. And again, they've sort of found us, don't be afraid to put out there, has anyone got experience in satellite connectivity, or I'm not afraid to ask questions and ask for help, I suppose. So it's I've sort of found them, and then they've found us, and the partnerships have developed from there. My last question to you is around finding you. Like, tell me, where can we find you? Online or Facebook? Yeah, so you can find us at the Better Internet for Rural, Regional and Remote Australia Facebook group, or if you type in BIRRR, BIRRR, which is sort of like I suppose, linked into a thorn in the side of some of the telcos. But you can also find us at Fix Bush Internet on Twitter, and our website is BIRRRaus.com. So they're the best locations to head to find us.
Fantastic. Kristy, thank you so much for your time today. I really, really appreciate all your wisdom, and I think I certainly have learned a lot from you, and I think there's a real need out there of women who want to make a difference and don't necessarily know, I've got this wonderful idea, or there's this main pain point that I want to address, but don't know how to go about doing that. So you've definitely given us a lot of food for thought today. Thank you very much.
No problem. I don't think you ever set out to be a leader. I think you always set out to address a problem or something in your community, and you don't actually know that you're being a leader until it's already happened. So it sort of just falls upon you.